So I'm excited to be here. And one afternoon about 7 years ago, I was driving with my boyfriend at the time to LAX airport. And I'll never forget the moment because he looked at me with these wide, puppy-eyed eyes and awe and said, "You're perfect." And it was as though time stood still. And I thought to myself, wow, finally someone sees me, they get me. Arrived. And I hid a huge smile, but the words that came out of my mouth actually were, "I'm sorry, but you're going to be very disappointed. I'm perfectly imperfect." And for a while, this man couldn't see my flaws, and I could see his. Recovering perfectionist. Please, is there anyone else in the room? Very good. But I loved all of his flaws, and it was the first time that I did love all flaws in someone, and it was actually really liberating. However, there came a day when we were no longer able to see the perfectly imperfect in each other, and our relationship ended. But I learned a valuable lesson from that. I learned that I can love imperfection, and I can also be seen as perfect. But it made me wonder, what is this viewpoint that makes someone seem perfect? So when I was little, my parents told me that if I got straight A's, they would buy me a horse. And this is really just their motivation to get me to study. But I wanted a horse more than anything in the entire world. So I studied really hard. And that was the first time that I learned that I could get what I want if I was perfect, right? So I got seated at a young age. So I strived really hard, I worked really hard, but I could never accomplish those straight A's. I almost got them once. I actually was a senior in college, and while all of my friends were partying really hard, I was studying late at night with my last attempt. It was so ingrained in me that I could get straight A's. But what ended up happening was I stayed up really late the night before with a friend who was going through a breakup, and I was counseling her and being there for her, and I was too exhausted to do anything on this test, and so I bombed it, and I got a B+ in that course, which was actually my favorite course. So that was pretty perfectly imperfect to me at that time. So for the majority of my life, I wore multiple masks to appear perfect, and I was driven to get the best time in track, to get a promotion every year, and you already know about my love life. So this game was exhausting, and it wasn't until I got my master's degree from the University of Santa Monica in spiritual psychology until I realized I needed to stop this. So what I learned at USM is that there are a lot of blessings in perfectionism, and I learned that the outcome of a goal achieved is temporarily satisfying, but that the true fulfillment comes from enjoying every single day to the best of my ability. And I learned that humanity's core wounding seems to be around this thing that we all have around unworthiness. And so I practiced new beliefs and actions that honored my inherent value. And I found what I call my sweet spot of enoughness. And I also learned about acceptance. There's a beautiful quote by the Sufi poet that goes, "Out beyond ideas of right doing and wrong doing, there is a field, I'll meet you there." So I became focused on creating these fields and loving the what-isness of life. And most importantly, I learned that my true nature is a divine being having a human experience. But it wasn't until the last few years that I actually started to embody these truths, and they've really helped shape my way of being and also my work in the world. I started to do more of what I love, and I found my calling as an equine-assisted coach at a ranch in Malibu. I love horses, and so this was something that it was literally pushed into. And I've been surrounded by incredible mountains and trails with multiple types of wildflowers and butterflies and dragonflies and deer, dozens of horses, and a resident mountain lion. And each time I'm there, I look out into the awe of nature and its expansiveness, its presence, its natural way of being and expressing. And I realize something. I accept nature. I love it. I appreciate its beauty. So just think for a second, when is the last time you looked at something in nature and wished it was different? Do you often think, wow, I wish the branch on that tree was in a different place? Or that sunset needs a little bit more yellow? When is the last time you looked at the bunny or the ocean and thought it was ugly? My guess is never. Yet, when was the last time you judged yourself or another human? In fact, it's quite possible you've judged me since I've even come up onto the stage. That's okay, you can forgive yourself. So here's what my recovering perfectionist learned from spending a lot of time in nature and with the majestic creature that I call the horse. So a horse doesn't care about being anything other than a horse. A horse doesn't care if you think it's fat or skinny, it just glows from the inside out. A horse doesn't care if you drive up in your clean Maserati or your really messy Ford Focus. Horses remind us of who we truly are. They require our presence, they evoke our joy, they celebrate our authenticity, and they return us to our innocence. See, nature understands that growth is a process. In fact, it's a natural law. There isn't a commitment to perfection, there's just a commitment to evolving. And nature can be our ever-present mirror for us to see our own true nature. Nature can help us see the beauty in imperfection, the incomplete, and the impermanent. So I brought some of these nature totems with me to really kind of anchor in some of this, but the caterpillar struggles as it becomes a butterfly, but it never wishes that it had different color wings. It's just ready to fly. It also accepts its extremely short lifespan because that's what is. It knows how to travel and really see the world in the short time that it has here on what we call this precious earth. The oyster makes its pearl after it's injured or attacked, and when a grain of sand enters into its shell, it causes a disturbance, so crystals are formed perfectly around it to protect it. The spider creates a seemingly perfect web to catch its meals and will rebuild from an endless supply of silk whenever it needs to create. And as I speak, there are millions of leaves from the birch and oak trees that are changing color and taking flight to the ground as the seasons change and they prepare for winter in New England. Their innate intelligence knows how easy it is to let go and that nothing is truly lost. So why is it that only humans are freaks of nature? I saw an amazing quote and image recently that said, the closer I get to nature, the further away I get from idiots. It just made me laugh. It's so true from my experience. So why are we the idiots? What is happening here? So I believe it's part of our protective personality, our fear-based thoughts that keep us separate rather than in states of connection. We look at others with our egos and not with our souls. We're quick to point out what we don't like rather than what we do. And this is dangerous because the more we let fear run the show, the more we have issues like climate change and GMOs. We stop protecting our own true nature as well. So what is the special viewpoint that we seem to hold for nature, and how can we apply this to ourselves? I believe it's seeing through the eyes of love and acceptance. We can practice seeing the true nature of a spirit in a body having a human experience. So what if you left here tonight and committed to seeing everyone, and most importantly yourself, the way you see nature? To see the light that glows from within, and to see everyone as perfectly imperfect creatures. I dare you to embrace and express your true nature. In what ways have you become a butterfly? What are the pearls in your life? What are the webs you have spun? What are the leaves you are letting go of? So this has been truly my journey. It's a daily practice because sometimes I forget. Luckily, I have the horse to remind me, and I've been blessed with the world's most perfectly imperfect thoroughbred mare. Her name is Lindsay, and she's both very sweet and extremely difficult. She's an incredible healer, and she also has a lot of health challenges. But come December 1st, I will own my own horse for the very first time. And I never got the straight A's, and I definitely don't feel ready. And my finances are not perfect. Yet this horse has chosen me, and through my Wabi Sabi decision, she gets to live rather than being put down. So I leave you to contemplate this. Another Sufi poet, Hafiz, I don't know what it is about the Sufi poets, he said, even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, you owe me. Look what happens with a love like that. It lights the whole sky. Thank you.